Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Diallo. We're here doing current events on this wonderful Monday, May 17th, 2001.
Wow.
Crazy, huh? May 17th, 2001.
It's a crazy.
Like I said, who would have thought back in 1960, you'd be saying, I wonder what it's like in 2021. You think you'd have flying cars?
No.
No? When in 1970 or 60, what did you think 2021 was going to be like? What? In the 1940s, they thought there was going to be flying cars by the year 2000.
Flying cars?
All we had by the year 2000 was Y2K, which turned out to be nothing.
What's Y2K?
It happened where all the computer systems that they developed, their internal chronometer only went to the year 2000. They didn't program it past that, and they thought all the computers were going to crash, but it actually didn't do anything. Didn't happen. All right, so we're reading out the East Bay Times today. We're going to look at what's going on around the world, around the Bay Area, and a city near you. So let's take a look at what we got.
Maybe come back in, Dean?
Yeah.
Hey, Joe. How are you doing? That's fine. You fine? I'm fine. Ole. I'm fine.
It's on your chair over there. So we're going to look at what is going on in the world.
The globe is still spinning.
The what?
The globe is still spinning.
It'll still be spinning long after we're gone. Long after humans are gone, it'll keep on spinning. All right.
How long do you think we've got?
Billions of years.
Really?
Yeah, as long as we don't blow ourselves up.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
So let's look at what's going on in the world today. In the local news, this is world news from the Middle East. Okay, anybody know what's going on in the Middle East right now?
Bang, 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 bang.
Pretty much. This is from Israel. Okay, so Israeli airstrikes hit Gaza City hard. Hamas responds with rockets launched towards civilian areas. And it's the most violent since 2014. This is from the Gaza City. Israeli warplanes unleashed a series of heavy airstrikes at several locations at Gaza City early today, hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu signaled the fourth war with Gaza's Hamas rulers would rage on. Explosions rocked the city from north to south for 10 minutes in an attack that was heavier and on a wider area and lasted longer than a series of air raids 24 hours earlier in which 42 Palestinians were killed. The deadliest single attack in the latest round of violence between the Israeli and Hamas militant group that rules Gaza. The earliest Israeli airstrike flattened 3 buildings. In a televised address, Netanyahu said Israel's attacks were continuing at full force and would take time. Israel wants to levy a heavy price on Hamas militant groups, he said, flanked by his defense minister and political rival, Benny Gantz, in a show of unity. Hamas also pressed on, launching rockets from civilian areas in Gaza towards civilian areas in Israel. One slammed into a synagogue in the southern city of Ashkelon hours before evening services for the Jewish holiday of Shavat, Israeli emergency services said. No injuries were reported. In the Israeli air assault early Sunday, families were buried under piles of cement rubble and twisted rebar. A yellow canary lay crushed on the ground. Shards of glass debris covered streets blocks away from the major downtown thoroughfare where the 3 buildings were hit over the course of 5 minutes around 1 a.m. The hostilities have repeatedly escalated over the past week, marking the worst fighting in the territory that is home to 2 million Palestinians since Israel and Hamas' devastating 2014 war. I have not seen this level of destruction through my 14 years of work, said Samir Al-Khatib, an emergency rescue official in Gaza, not even in the 2014 war. Rescuers fearlessly dug through the rubble using excavators and bulldozers amid clouds of heavy dust. One shouted, "Can you hear me?" in a hole. Minutes later, first responders pulled a survivor out. The Gaza Health Ministry said 16 women and 10 children were among those killed, and with more than 50 people wounded. Heya Abdabala, 21, who lives in a building next to one of those destroyed, said she was sleeping when the airstrike sent her fleeing into the street. She accused Israel of not giving its usual warning to residents to leave before launching such attacks. "We are tired," she said. "We need a truce. We can't bear it anymore." The Israeli Army spokesman office said the strike targeted Hamas underground military infrastructure. As a result of the strike, the underground facility collapsed, causing the civilian houses, foundations above them to collapse as well, leading to unintended casualties, it said. Among those reported killed was Dr. Ayman Abu Alouf, the head of its internal medicine department of Sharif Hospital and a senior member of the hospital's coronavirus management committee. Two of Abu Alouf's teenage children and 2 other family members were also buried under the rubble. The death of the 51-year-old physician was a huge loss at a very sensitive time, said Muhammad Abu Selmia, this director of Shifa. Gaza's healthcare system, already gutted by Israeli and Egyptian blockade imposed in 2007 after Hamas seized power from rival Palestinian forces, has been struggling with a surge in coronavirus infections even before the latest conflict. Israeli airstrikes have leveled a number of Gaza City's tallest buildings, which Israel alleges contain Hamas military infrastructure. Among them was the building housing the Associated Press Gaza office and those of other media outlets. So how about that? Got the war going on.
It's time to stop.
Well, they've been fighting for a long time.
It's time to stop.
It is, but they've been fighting for a long time.
No ands, ifs, or buts.
They just keep throwing stones at each other, and nobody knows why at this point.
Well, it's time to stop and figure out why.
You got terrorist cells in one part that literally use civilians and they use really hospitals, they use schools and churches as shields for their military installations. So they purposely put their military installations underneath schools and underneath hospitals because they know when the bombs come in and try to kill them, it's going to knock down the school or the hospital.
I think that's all the shit.
Yep.
Disgusting.
All right. Let's see. Let's look at this is from Ethnicity. So it says, Dr. Fauci says the pandemic has exposed undeniable effects of racism in America. Let's see what he means by that. The immunologist who leads the COVID-19 response in the United States said Sunday that that undeniable effects of racism have led to unacceptable health disparities that especially hurt African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans during the pandemic. COVID-19 has shown a bright light on our society's failings, Dr. Anthony Fauci said during a graduation ceremony for Emory University. Speaking by webcast from Washington, Fauci told graduates in Atlanta that many members of minority groups work in essential jobs where they might be exposed to the coronavirus. He also said that they are more likely to become infected if exposed because of medical conditions such as hypertension, chronic lung disease, diabetes, or obesity. Now, very few of these comorbidities have racial determinants, Fauci said. Almost all relate to the social determinants of health dating back to disadvantageous conditions that some people of color find themselves in from birth regarding the availability of adequate diet, access to health care, and the undeniable effect of racism in our society. Man, I'm not even tired.
No, you're bored.
God. Fauci said correcting societal wrongs will take a commitment of decades, and he urged the graduates to be part of the solution. Fauci said that once society returns to some form of normality, people should not forget that infectious diseases have disproportionately hospitalized and killed people of color. Fauci on Sunday was awarded the Emory University's President's Medal. Previous recipients include former President Jimmy Carter, the Dalai Lama, and the late U.S. Representative John Lewis, a civil rights icon. In accepting the award, Fauci denounced the destruction of division. Societal divisiveness is counterproductive in a pandemic, Fauci said. We must not be at odds with each other since the virus is the enemy, not each other. You agree with that?
We heard it.
Yeah. We should all be friends, right? Why can't we be friends? Right?
Because we're all stupid.
Let's see what else we got. You have any good stories from the weekend?
Good stories from the weekend?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see what else we got. Obituaries. We're going to go for the advice column. Ask Amy and add Miss Manners. So we're going to start with Miss Manners. The title is Madame Vice President okay? Dear Miss Manners, our Vice President is being addressed as Madam Vice President. I realize she is the first female Vice President in the United States. And so this usage is unprecedented setting. However, to my ear, this usage doesn't seem to be the female equivalent of the way American presidents are addressed, Mr. President. Wouldn't true equivalency be Miss Vice President? In the Francophone diplomatic world, Madame is used for both female ambassadors and wives of ambassadors, which further muddies the water. Dear gentle reader, there is another muddle in the water. You are confusing Madame with the French honorific Madame, spelled with the E at the end. Madame is a perfectly good English word, the equivalent of Mr., with a dash more respect added. Thus, it is the correct way to address someone of high rank, married or not, as it is used for female royalty in England. In direct address, it is abbreviated as ma'am, equivalent to sir for males. As Miss Manners recalls, the precedent was set by the previous highest ranking female in the US government. When Madeleine Albright became Secretary of State, she became Madam Secretary, as she entitled her memoir. You need not feel bad about your mistake. The entire last all-male United States Supreme Court was unable to figure out and failed to research the equivalent for Mr. Justice for their first female peer. So like many people who are bewildered by the emotional controversy about titles, they drop the courtesy entirely, becoming simply justice. In sadness, Miss Manners, when those little touches of respect disappear. Now let's look at advice column, okay, from Ask Amy. This one's titled, Moms Want Family to See Babies. So, dear Amy, I am a new mom with 2 one-year-old babies. My wife and I love being, wait, what? My wife and I, what? Oh, they're a lesbian couple? Okay. Dear Amy, I am a new mom with 2 one-year-old babies. My wife and I love being moms, but I am pretty heartsick that due to the pandemic, none of my family members have met our fast-growing babies in person. For the first year, I took this in stride and assumed that visits would be possible in 2021 after vaccinations. When our 8-hour flight away, we are an 8-hour flight away from our family and driving is not possible. I don't feel comfortable taking our unmasked babies on a long flight, safety-wise. However, my family members are either unwilling to vaccinate or are vaccinated, but with no plans to visit. I don't feel it's appropriate for me to ask my unvaccinated relatives to visit due to the risk to themselves, our babies, and others. I've expressed how sad this makes me to my mom and brother, but they still have no plans to visit, and my mom's still not planning to get vaccinated. Aside from working to accept that our babies will not meet any of the family for likely another year or so, is there anything else I can do? We already talk via video, but it isn't the same. I'm fairly heartbroken about this, even though I recognize how this is a small thing to handle compared to what some have suffered in the pandemic. Yes, this is what they call first world problems. You got starving people everywhere in the world. And this is the biggest problem we have. You can't see a family. That's called first world problems. So here's the response. Dear distant, some people would easily quit jumping on a plane and fly 8 hours just to smell the tops of your baby's heads. Others simply cannot seem to get there for a variety of reasons. I dealt with this sadness myself, living in England as a new and very lonely mom. None of my child's grandparents could manage the transatlantic travel to see us. The pandemic has amplified everyone's travel anxiety, including yours. Yes, I think you will have to accept that your family members might not meet your babies until you and your wife can travel with them. I sense that you feel rejected, but I would caution you to understand that others' bond and connection to your children will likely never match yours. Understand, too, that this is your family member's loss, but they just don't know. I hope you will continue to foster connections via video and photos and plan for your own travel when you can manage it. 2 toddlers on a long flight. Now that's an adventure in momming. Let's see. Now, we're going to look at what kind of story you guys want. You guys want a sad story? So all this paper is sad. People getting shot, people dying. That would be happy news, right?
Yes. Read another kind of publication.
Yeah, this is all just everything's dying. People are being bombed. People are being shot and killed. Man.
That's what makes news.
I know. If it bleeds, it leads. If it burns, it earns. So let's see here. What?
Oh,
it's okay. So we're going to look at today in history, and then we're going to end with news of the weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to look back at today in history from way back when. So today is May 17th. We're going to look at May 17th, 1792. So May 17th, 1792, the New York Stock Exchange had its beginnings as a group of brokers met under a tree on Wall Street and signed the Buttonwood Agreement. The New York Stock Exchange came to be on this day in 1792. What happened 300 years before that, in 1492?
The same tree of birdcraft.
1492, Columbus sailed the sea blue, something like that. He didn't discover America. He discovered the Bahamas. Yeah. Or the Caribbean. No, I think it was South America, maybe. I don't know. So, May 17th, 1946, President Truman seized control of the nation's railroads, which delayed a threatened strike by engineers and trainmen. So the government took over the railroad. That's scary. May 17th, 1973, a special committee convened by the US Senate begins its televised hearings in the Watergate scandal. You guys remember that, don't you? The Watergate scandal?
Yes.
With who? Who was the president? Nixon, right? Who was Nixon's vice president? There you go, Spiro Agnew, right? Like the vice president that actually people remember, like the only one. May 17th, 1980. Rioting that claimed 18 lives erupted in Miami's Liberty City after an all-white jury in Tampa acquitted 4 former police officers fatally beating Black insurance executive Arthur McDuffie. Wow. So let's look at news of the weird. Let's look at birthdays first. Whose birthday is it today? Bob Saget's birthday. Remember Bob Saget from America's Funniest Home Videos? Full House? Sam Fuller? You don't know who that is. Craig Ferguson? No. Okay. Now we're going to look at news of the weird. This one's called A Shocking Mother's Day. You let your grown son, his girlfriend, and their child move into your house. And what thanks do you get in return? For a 43-year-old Lone Rock, Wisconsin woman, Happy's Mother's Day was expressed with a shot to the neck from a taser wielded by her 22-year-old son, Andrew Peterson. According to the smoking gun, Peterson became upset on May 9th because he couldn't find his phone. So he stunned his mother and then left her home with 20-year-old Colleen Parker and their child. Patterson was arrested for the shocking assault. Parker also was arrested for allegedly punching Peterson's mom. Get it? The shocking assault. It was a taser. It's a shocking assault. That's funny. So thank you for joining me. I tried to make this a little bit upbeat. It was all sad news today. So thank you again for joining me for current events. My name is Diallo, and away we go.
Where are you going?
That's gonna be my catchphrase. Man, I'm sore. Golfing yesterday.
Uh-oh.